I mean, one of the reasons I love doing this podcast is that it's such a direct connection between the people and the creativity, right? And that feedback loop it's intoxicating in the best ways, right? And so I think that to me is like one of the fuels that keeps somebody going, independent of the money, the power, the fame, all of it, right? Like there's something great about the creativity between you and the audience.
Okay, guys, you're just going to have to roll with me on this one. I got a vision for this episode. Are you on board?
You're like our shaman today. You're our guide.
We'll come with Jessica.
We'll go on any journey with you.
And I'm just warning people because we're
woefully lost without you.
Oh, well, we're going to go slightly off the news because there are a couple things weighing on me. But first, we've got the full quad here. Very exciting. Brett, Papa Green color. Morin, what's cooking?
I've got Bobby.
Still don't know what that is.
That is an infant formula company, Sam, that your wife and your child have both used.
A lot of it. Our children are made of it. Yeah. Very good.
Does it have creatine in it?
Yeah. That's why that's why Wilder's so buff.
And Brit's best investment ever.
Yeah,
it's a great investment. I'm glad that they're cooking. They really said the formula crisis, like, oh my God, it was so sad, but big plug for Bobby. We're 2 seconds in. We've already got our first.
Okay. Sorry, that wasn't intentional. I was just cold because it's freezing and I'm about to go change into like conference chic for your
winter
conference
is
dress.
Here. There's snow everywhere in Montana.
Conference
chic. Yes. Get ready.
I wish someone would tell me what that is, but I know it when I see it. I'm desperately trying to find it. And Dave Morin not wearing his pop of color, but holding down the Marin office.
I'm wearing subtle blue here for.
Dave, do you wear color?
On occasion.
This is like the worst thing about Dave, actually. I've been working on it for so long, Jess. It's not working so well.
Give me some credit.
I think we pick a signature color and then you walk, run, walk before you run.
Crawl, walk, run, Dave. Just one color, please.
I think we can do this because the backdrop between your walls and your color, I'm getting like earth tony vibes. And then Sam Lesson, I know where you are, Sam, but tell the people where you are.
I'm in this place called New York. It's where all the money is in New York, and then we ship some of it out west.
Oh, and it's also a Taylor Swift song. Welcome to New York. You know that one, Sam?
We've been waiting for me. It's been waiting for me.
Sam, can you tell people waiting for their bags of money to get shipped out west, how's the money supply?
It's looking okay as long as you're a huge tech platform company. Apparently, they're shipping it all. I'm in a hedge fund across from Google. You can see in the background. And the story is, unsurprisingly, they're shipping it to Microsoft and Meta and all the big companies. They are not shipping it to little companies anytime soon.
They don't like the little guys. Well, that actually brings me to what I wanted to talk about today, which is triggered by all things, by Snap and Evan Spiegel, because Snap reported earnings this week. They beat expectations, which isn't necessarily saying much, but everyone's surprised because it's like, oh, their ad business is growing, and that's not, I think a lot of people had written them off. And I was always surprised because the COO stepped down, Evan's still there running the company. He's made all these promises about, how long he's going to stick around. And he's just, it seems to me like grinding. Like he's just grinding at this company that I think I checked $15 billion, obviously in so many dimensions, a wildly successful company, but has sort of been deeply eclipsed by everything else. And I don't know, I want to know what you guys think and I also am very much team skeptic on so many things, but my initial reaction was kind of like, good for you for grinding. And then I thought, it just reminded, I think there's so much of entrepreneurship. People ask me all the time what starting a company did to change my perspective on news coverage and what the press gets wrong and what the public gets wrong about starting a company. And honestly, the answer is so freaking much. I don't know where to begin. And I thought this was a good topic to kind of dig into, triggered by Evan Spiegel, triggered by the 10th anniversary of the information. And also just like in these really tough moments in the world too, where I think a lot of the social channels understandably get like hot and heavy. People are just like extra on edge. And I think it's just also leading to a more like attack driven culture that affects everyone. But, I was in 2 different cases the subject of it this week. And it's weighing on me in a way that it hasn't before. So that's a question I like to pose to the group. Sam, you had something to say.
Well, Snap, I was looking right now. It went public at 27. It's trading at 9, right? It went public over 5 years ago. Its private valuations were much higher
I'm not
than it was
arguing
now.
that it's successful. I want us to dig, so we can talk about that. But like the founder, Evan Spiegel, who I'm sure we've all met, sure I'll have different opinions of, but like, I'm just struck. This is a guy who could have walked away a long time ago, and he's not.
And I think the thing here's my take on it is like, look, you have these lightning in a bottle moments if you're a founder. It's very, very rare, where all of a sudden you build something important and you have a community that's deeply tied to you, right? I bet if I'm Evan Spiegel, what is he, like 23? I'm kidding. He's like 30 something.
He's probably 30. We can check.
Probably 30. He's meaningfully younger than us.
I think he wakes at least 3 kids, maybe 4.
He wakes up every day and he's like,
33.
I'm a billionaire. I have a cool product lots of people identify with. I got lightning in a bottle once. And the reality is he's 33, old man. The point is that like he has 2 options. One is be like, I have this thing that is very associated with me and I can keep working on it and I'm positioned to keep working on it. And like, I can do amazing things and life is long and like, no one's taking my job from me. Like no one's going to, as far as I don't know the voting structure, but he's probably in the camp where he cannot be fired, I would assume. And so he's like, this is going to be my legacy and I should work on it. Or what else would I spend my time on? It's like the Jerry Yangs where you like blow out of Yahoo and then have like a weird investing career. It's like, I think the reality is that like when you have these platforms, they're yours and they're big. It is still a big company. It's like, it's my basic view would be like, you're 33. What else are you going to do? Like, of course you should keep working on it. Right. Like even that. And like, you have a lot of degrees of freedom to make it into something new. Now, I don't think it's been successful. I think it was a one-trick pony and like has been eclipsed in 1,000 ways. But I put the flip side on it. It's like you can do the Jack Dorsey and say I'm going to start 6 companies and be all over the place. Yeah. You can do the Jerry Yang. He's too young to retire, and it gets boring on yachts. And so, to me, I think like the reality is like it makes sense for him to keep working on it. I think it is admirable. You lead from the front, you keep going, but it's also not like super surprising to me, right?
Yeah. I've met a number of people here in Silicon Valley that have been quite successful financially. And the number means nothing to them. Like they literally they actually still spend very frugally. I'm not saying Evan spends frugally.
I don't think Evan Spiegel still spends frugally.
I'm not saying that. But I do think like people are driven by like one of 4 things the most, right? Like money, power, fame, and respect. And I think like ego is part of respect. And the fact that it was 27, it's down to 9, like he hasn't made it yet. I don't think he feels respected yet. I think he gets trashed quite a bit in the press. And I think he wants to build a company that can endure and to Sam's point, like create a legacy beyond his generation.
Well, and probably, I think, and don't forget boredom. Just don't forget boredom.
Yeah.
Right. Which is like, it's a, cry me a river problem to be a billionaire and be bored. But at 33, like, what's he going to do for the next 50, 60 years, 50 years?
Okay. And I think it's like high risk too, right? Because if you've like made it once, even if you didn't make it to the level you wanted to make it at, and you start another company again and it's a complete failure, then it's like doubly bad. It's, for your ego, I think. Like, it's like, should he like ride out one success and keep crunching on it until it is the success he wants it to be? Or should he like cut his ties early and try to do a second one because he's bored? And
I want to go to Dave in a sec. I think also like, but my point here isn't like, I think everything you guys said made a lot of sense. I mean, Sam, to be very direct, and I was told by a listener that I'm very knives out for you, Sam, on this podcast. So
that's okay. I
was like, I don't think Sam feels knives
She's like
out,
this off the podcast
yeah,
too,
this
everyone.
is those are soft knives. I've heard a lot worse.
I've been habituated to the knives for 20 years. I don't even feel them anymore.
Okay, but here's my point. Like, doesn't everything you guys said makes a ton of sense. Sam, you are also a person who does not want to be close to managing people, who actually
Oh my God,
thinks
no.
that managing and you could not pay you to be a CEO. Like
Absolutely
you
not.
couldn't.
There is no amount of money in the world.
Okay, well, I mean, come on.
I don't know if I agree with that.
You'd run the New York Times right now. If someone made you CEO of the New York Times, you would run
No,
it.
absolutely not. I would. Depends what I could do with the union.
Yeah,
I would happily run the New York Times for one day to fire a lot of people and to set some editorial policies, and then I'd leave.
I'd like to
Here
let
we
all
go.
the kind people and reporters at the New York Times know I do not condone firing all the reporters at the Times. But anyway, so I think that's all true about the sense of purpose and grind and impact that keeps founders in these roles for a long time. I think it's absolutely true. But you also have to weigh it against the shit of the job. And you have to weigh it against a lot of other things. And I actually don't know if that's good or bad, or I'm not saying it should make them heroes, but I think it does make it more interesting. And I think it makes it a little more unusual for people to stay so long because there is just so much stuff. And if you look at this and zoom out, and this isn't just about Snap, right? But what caused Larry Page to step aside? It was actually having to go, the prospect of going before the DOJ, right? So Larry stayed in the game.
Well, same thing with Jeff Bezos.
Yeah.
Jeff Bezos left because he didn't want to deal with that.
Yeah. Same thing with Gates. I mean, I guess Gates kind of hit the end.
Well, Gates tried to and then lost.
I think this is why, I think this is why Rupert is not currently, running Fox anymore, because they've got a bunch of legal stuff too. But like, I don't know. I think it's interesting to me that this kind of stuff never gets talked about. And I'm not saying these people like deserve a pass and to not get scrutiny. I'm in the whole business of giving them scrutiny, but like, it's more unusual than I think people realize. And I think it speaks to like a characteristic that some of these good founders have that doesn't get appreciated. But Dave, over to you.
I think the thing that, Evan is one of the best product guys on earth. And I think that, I guess the vector I would like to talk about in this conversation is that when you get to scale running one of these products is, I've run large scale social network. I've also done investing, done both sides of it. And, I've also been part of really large organizations where you're, really abstracted from the product work. But if you're a founder of a consumer social network or a consumer product of any kind, and Sam, I think you said it earlier, the you get embedded with this community that you're a part of, and the feedback loop that happens between you and the consumers or users of the product is this really powerful feeling. And it's not unlike, I think I look at musicians that have huge scale, like Taylor or anybody that's in the pop charts, and they're in this sort of interplay of creativity between the audience and the product. In the case of musician, it's the music or the concerts. And with social networks, it's the network. And I think that you can't discount how hard it is to get that community up to the scale that it's at and how powerful that interplay is. And especially if you're somebody who loves product, and I've also, I've worked with Zuck, I worked with Steve Jobs. Like there's a sort of type of person that loves doing product and continuing to do product despite the difficult stuff that you're talking about, Jess. And putting down the sword and losing the ability to do that work, I think is very difficult.
Yeah,
I think about this all the time, actually. And we joke about it on this podcast. And Britt constantly eggs me on to start something again. And I think it's largely because of how fun it is and how creative it is. I mean, one of the reasons I love doing this podcast is that it's such a direct connection between the people and the creativity, right? And that feedback loop it's intoxicating in the best ways, right? And so I think that to me is like one of the fuels that keeps somebody going, independent of the money, the power, the fame, all of it, right? Like there's something great about the creativity between you and the audience.
Well, and I will say from personal experience and also just talking to other people who've had wildly successful consumer products they built and then thought about doing or done another thing. Here's the thing. It's like, I'm actually building products again for the first time in ages and having an absolute blast doing it, right? Just basically myself with a few people, like
Would
tiny
you like
teams.
to plug your products, Sam?
Oh, no.
Or is it
Trust me. There will be time for that.
I saw a demo last weekend.
It's coming along. I'm having fun with it, but it's super fun, super low scale, not serious, but fun. The thing about if you're Evan Spiegel, you
Sam,
talk about like,
so am I. Interesting.
Okay.
Anyway, the point is that like if you're me and you're fucking around, fine. If you're Evan Spiegel and you're like, okay, we got done the wrong thing here. I have a different idea. Snap is not the right platform for me to like work on this idea. I want to do this thing again. Here's the problem. You're like, okay, now I want to go do it from zero again. The problem is, especially if you're like a billionaire from zero, unless you're a true monk, you're going to be like, there's a lot of shit that goes from 0 to 1 that you don't want to deal with again. Like you don't want to deal with.
It's like going back to freshman year.
It's like you don't want to set up staging environments and like go to Stripe and put your EIN in. Like it's like you're a fucking billionaire, right? And like the problem then is, and this is the issue, is like you're like, oh well, I can bring my team with me. I'll bring like 6 people, or I'll bring the chief of staff to help me do all those shitty things. But the problem is for consumer product, the second you start introducing too many people too quickly, you are going to fail, right? Like you cannot build social products or social software with too many people in the room from the start.
Nope.
And that's why I think you see like, what was the WonderCo example, right? Where you're like, way too much money, way too many people.
Jeffrey Katzenberg incubator? Is that what you're talking about?
No, not the incubator. What was the total failure app they built?
Quibi.
Sorry, not WonderCo.
That wasn't really supposed to be a social network. That was
no, but it's still a product. He tried to build a product from zero as a billionaire with too many people, too many voices, too much money.
Yeah,
too much money, and that's because like when you come from you're like
never
when
works.
when you're at a huge scale, there's all this fun stuff, and then all the shitty stuff can get abstracted for you. There are people to handle that, right? Like, and that's a super cool place to be. It takes a true monk to be like, okay, I had all that leverage. I'm going to go back and like do this by hand.
What is Kevin Systrom doing? Is Kevin Systrom a monk? So
yeah, I think Kevin is a monk.
I would say that Kevin in the spectrum of
who he is to the audience. Just not everyone might know, but so Kevin started Instagram, scaled it, obviously tremendously. Yep. Left Meta due to widely reported.
Also one of the best product minds of all time.
Left due to widely reported differences in strategies about the future of Instagram, which the company was integrating more into the main services, has launched an app, Artifact, around newsreader, uses some AI around personalization, and like by all accounts is like really back in the trench. So some people do it.
I would say I don't know the details, but I would say that in the spectrum of monk to not monk, Kevin is more monk than not monk. But I have to imagine from first principles reasoning that when Kevin wakes up in the morning, having built one of the most successful social products in the world and worked at billion plus scale and being the guy who made it, and he's like, oh my God, my staging environment's broken. It's not like his like happiest moment, right? It's like, that's like a real, like, that's pretty annoying, right? And like, I don't know. Like, again, it depends how you approach these things, but like, I think that's one of the big challenges of trying again. And I do think it's one of the things I think Evan Spiegel is probably quite aware of the fact that like to make a social product that work, yes, you have to be in Dave's list of the top 10 product people in the world, but you also need incredible luck and incredible timing. And like, it's not clear that just because you did especially social once properly and got it the right timing and the right product, that you have any prayer of doing it again. And so if you have it, if you are the guy, you get to like do really cool shit at scale. You have a great team underneath you, et cetera. Maybe the thing that pushes you off is regulation. Like, I don't want to deal with the next 5 years of my life fighting the government. Mm-hmm. Let's let someone else do that. But it's not going to be like, oh, I'm done, right? Unless you really are like really old and done, right?
I think we've argued on this pod for like earlier retirement ages for executives. Did that apply to this camp, or do you guys think
I was going to talk about term limits again, except for the fact
term
that
limits.
instead
No.
I'm going to go back. I'm not going to do it. I'm going to actually go back to another analogy I've made on this pod, which is to the movie and entertainment industry, which I'm very inspired by because I think the idea that these actors and actresses can move from like one project to the next in like, 3 years or so keeps them like really creatively fulfilled. And if they want to take a 3-year break in between because they're like such A-listers and have enough money, they can do that too. And musicians do this with albums, I guess. But then you have the people who are like the stars of Grey's Anatomy that have been on for like 25 years and they're just like fucking rolling with it because they've got a franchise. Yeah. And it's like the people, it's like Steve Jobs. He's like, well, I'm going to stay at Apple for like the rest of my life because it's doing well and it's
That's
fun
not
and
true. But that's not true. Steve started next. And actually there's a famous Steve Jobs video that reflects exactly what Sam is saying. He's like giving this interview about how annoying it is to put the toilet paper in the bathroom and get a coffee machine and like do all this stuff that, is just kind of the organism handles when it's at scale. And when you're back down to just you and a few people in the room, it's like you got to do all these things again.
Yeah, but Steve is a genius because he set up his direct reports to be 2. Like one is Tim Cook, who basically handles everything operational that Steve doesn't want to do. And the other is James, who's our partner at Offline, who did a bunch of the like innovation stuff with Steve. And so,
but that's like what you get to do when you can hire those guys and have the best executives and will do it. If those guys, if Steve Jobs said, hey, the 2 of you come work with me on like something, he actually could probably pull that off, but it would be a mistake, right? It'd be too many cooks in the kitchen. That's like the wrong org for that. Like that's what you get to do at scale is you get to pay people $20 million, $100 million a year to do the dirty work, right? So you can just do the cool stuff.
And didn't Steve start Next as a way back into Apple?
I mean, at the time, I don't think that's what it was.
It was just revenge.
Yeah,
it was a revenge. It was a spite store.
Yeah, but I think it was like, and I guess this is the thing I would say about this entire narrative that we're talking about right now. There are some founders that are perpetual tinkerers. They just want to build things and engineer things and keep going, not unlike musicians that just keep making albums, right? And if anything, that's the counter narrative here that's important, which is I think that way too many consumer founders that are, on the top product minds list just like don't try again, and they should, right? Like musicians don't like, make a hit album and then not try to make another album, right? Like great musicians just keep making songs, and sometimes you get hits, sometimes you don't. Same goes with authors, same goes with directors of movies. Like people make flops all the time. And NFL players, you go out, you lose a game on Sunday, you play again the next Sunday, right? Like we actually don't see this a lot. Like a lot of people will build something great.
Are you saying these people aren't resilient, Dave? Or Sam, go ahead.
Well, I think the thing that's interesting about Snap, just because a riff on this with you, Dave, is like, I think one of the reasons Snap is such a shitty company is because Evan has too fertile a mind for new products. They're constantly making new shit and not refining what works. So it's like, oh, now we're doing like an AI agent. Oh, now we're doing this like other format. Oh, now we're doing glasses. Like there just seems like an incredibly unfocused company.
They definitely went through that period, but they rolled that back. And actually,
but didn't they just wasn't their big things just recent?
Snapchat Plus is their new thing, which is like 12 different features.
But that's just a business move.
Well, but I think the thing is like I actually think that this is the difference between a product leader and a business leader, right? Is like I actually think if you think about what's made, like the opposite obviously is Twitter, which did nothing for 20 years. Facebook, has innovated, but they really keep like if you think about the products, like the criticism is always there's too much in them, and they're trying to like slim them down in a lot of cases and do less and be better at what they do. But I think like it is interesting. I think if you want to knock this kind of paradigm we're talking about, it's like if you're a fertile founder, you're like a product oriented founder, you love products, the trap you can fall into is you want to build new products when actually what the business needs you to do is just refine the shit out of your ads model, right? Which I promise you, Evan Spiegel is not getting out of bed excited about, right? And so I don't know. I think that's the counter narrative is like maybe as much as like for Evan, it's like this is the ultimate playground and it's his, and he can kind of keep iterating on it and keeping ideas ahead, and he wants to do it and he wants to see it win. That's all very admirable. From a pure business perspective, they're doing a bunch of stuff they probably shouldn't be doing, and like a professional manager would cut back to the core and make their ads business fucking crazy, right? And like would make the company more profitable.
like, I kind of, and part of, I mean, this is a broad topic, obviously, but like one of the things on my mind is like the sort of tropes around the sort of founders and their control and coverage of these companies versus like the reality, right? And one of the tropes, which again, I think is true, is that like you need the smart business mind to kind of complement the product founder. And of course, you need teams of people who complement each other to do anything. And Snap has had a ton of those. Had a lot more turnover in that role recently. I'm curious from you guys and what you've seen with in your own experience and people you've worked with. Like, what does the founder need to do to build that relationship and those teams?
I don't think they need that person. I think they need to be that person in a lot of cases, right? I think the handing the job off to someone usually doesn't work. Sometimes you have something that's such a rocket ship that even if that person's bad, it doesn't matter. Right. And so you can kind of like float through it. Right. But I'd actually argue that the whole paradigm of like smart product founder, hire business person good, make business work. That's actually like never actually true. What you need is you need the founder to be that person. And then every once in a while you get lucky.
You have to grow into both. I think like you look at like a Brian Chesky, right? Like somebody who grew into both, right? Like he does extraordinary product work and he's clearly doing wonderful, like over and over again business work. Like they keep re-engineering that business model, right? And I think this is also the thing about the Steve Jobs mythology that a lot of people get wrong. As somebody who was in the room with him, like the guy was an insane businessman. Right. Like, and I think that's clear to people, but sometimes it's not, right? Like if you talk to, like Britt said, our partner at Offline worked with Steve for 28 years and he will tell you that they were as obsessed in the early days at building an amazing product as they were at building an amazing business. They were constantly focused back and forth. They thought of it as yin and yang, right? And that was like, an incredibly important thing to be truly great at both.
Yeah, I'm not saying that. I don't think that you. I'm arguing that it is nice to have a number two. I mean, I've seen this.
But those number twos are always expendable. They have to be.
Would you say Cheryl was expendable at Facebook?
Don't ask me that question.
I mean, I think Sam, just to push back, it's a little bit like it's an aggressive term. I get that it gets
I'm just
played,
saying
but
it's
like
not binary.
Teams are teams, right? People don't stay. Founders are forever in a business until they're.
Well, maybe that's the point, right? I mean, and I also think like when you were talking about Chesky, I was thinking about Belinda Johnson, right? It was a long time, but I think there's a timeline. The timelines aren't aligned, right? And what we have these founders who, for all the reasons we were talking about earlier, are generally in it for the long haul. They're super young and et cetera, right? You have different people who are going to come and go in the business. And I think to Sam's point, I wouldn't use the word expendable. You kind of have to acknowledge that the business is going to go through different phases and you can't bet that you're going to have an executive team that doesn't change for, 20, 30 years.
Well, I think there's also something very interesting happening where there was a moment in history, which we just lived through. To reference my long slide deck, I think we lived through a really weird moment in history where you could build these businesses purely on product and growth and say, the business comes later, right? Like that was like, there was a moment where that worked. That moment has passed. And so what you're going to find now is that like there was a very brief window where you could just be the best in the world of product or the best in the world or have a great insight and just grow really quickly and everything else kind of works itself out, whatever. The Snap is the epitome of that, right? In terms of what that model looked like and how it was financed and how it went public. Now, we're back in a much more, that era is over. And so that's why like my whole thing about how we finance seed companies, like I'm not financing product people who don't know how to build a business anymore, right? No way, right? Like I'm financing people who know how to take my $3 million seed check and build a good business, which then someday becomes a great business. And like that means that the talent that comes in the door, I don't want a pure product CEO ever again. Like that era is over. And that means that like those people, doesn't mean they won't have number twos. That doesn't mean they won't say, I can't do everything. I get someone to do it. But it does mean the really successful people are full package. And I think what the interesting question, jury's out on Snap. I don't know Evan. He's not, I know some of you guys know him much better. I've met him, but he's not like a friend. Is like, he's clearly a great product thinker. It's not clear to me he's a great business person, right? I think it might be that business really did hit this point where they were riding a wave of company building on pure product and growth alone that just does not actually exist in the broader picture, right? And that's why you see things that like great businesses, like, Meta is a great business platform. Like, you take a lot of different products, you plug it into the machine. It is a great business platform that happens to also have some great products.
Sam, to double click on something you said I think you said it many pods ago, or you were writing about it a few months ago. If you look at the biggest companies in tech, right, and each cohort from like the 70s, 80s, 90s, 2000s, and the fact that the big five in tech were all started late 70s, in this cohort that happened around that time. It was like on the heels of Silicon, transitioning into the personal computer. And those businesses had to be built as the yin and yang. You needed to have the product and the business out of the gate, right? And like, you look at them today, they're still thriving, right? They were still great at that. And as each subsequent cohort went along all the way into the 2010s, in the 2010s, you saw this phenomenon that we're talking about now that started really in the mobile era where people just chased
Why
growth.
do we see it? Was it that we had the founders were just so young and the venture capitalists?
No, I think it was possible. I think this was a phenomenon of the internet, right? Like, you could build internet businesses this way. And I do think there was a lot of YOLOing going on. And I think, if we went and ran the numbers, I think you'd see a lot of capital vaporized because of the YOLO. But, I think that's a lot what it was. Like, you could
There
see
was a
these
moment. Well, it also helped that there was zero interest rate environment. There's a lot of things that help make this happen, right? But these basically, to your Dave's point, like, a lot of these businesses were Hail-Married, right? And if the product was strong enough, everyone was like, yeah, eventually you make money. Don't worry about it, right? And like, that era is decidedly over, right?
Yeah.
So like, it's not a model to follow.
Well, I think the founders perpetuated
I think we all did. So did the venture capitalists. So did the LP. Everybody did.
Well, it's great. That model was awesome for venture capitalists.
But I'm just curious why founders like Mark were willing to kind of cede the perception that they weren't good or interested in the business, right? I mean,
and that was recruiting.
Maybe it was just like a recruiting tactic or something. He's not the only. There are plenty of people who did this.
Money's dirty. We don't want to talk about money, right? Like, you want to talk about like vision. You want to talk about like product, and it's just a different narrative.
I don't know though. I don't know if I buy that. I think like a lot of founders do come into with the mission. Like I was saying before, like sometimes maybe they'll have the business mindset to grow a business, but it's not like gets them out of bed every day. Like, they want to grow a good business, but they care about like changing the world in some way or earning the credit.
I think that's an old way of thinking, Britt. I think that I'm very happy for founders like, I want to make a fuck ton of money and change the world.
Jess, were you asking this in the context of Facebook?
I'm more generally, right? So this era, I think you guys make a great point. There was this era, it was sort of an aberration, but it was where this theme of like, the founder not being the business person really.
Well, but even to Mark's credit, like, I remember sitting down to talk to Mark Zuckerberg when I was first joining. And I remember being impressed with the business thinking, right? Like, there was real, thinking going on.
They were running ads on that from the second month it was live. Like, I remember flyers. Remember I tried to buy one for your birthday in college, Jess. We would have been the first Facebook flyer for $30 to advertise on Harvard's campus.
Yeah. So
hold on, Dave, you should tell them what you did for mine. This is hilarious because I never heard this about Sam and Jess. Hold on. We need to take a time out.
I forgot about this.
You need to tell everyone what happened.
I don't remember. What did I do?
Dave blanketed the flyer. Okay, for anyone that doesn't remember, flyers were like these personalized ads you can buy across your like campus network. So everyone that logged in to like UT Austin, where I went to school, would see this like billboard effectively across Facebook. This was like an example of Facebook's early advertising. And so Dave, who like had worked there early on, just like bought all the University of Texas flyers for the.
Oh yeah, now I remember. I bought the entire inventory of UT.
As like my
Austin.
birthday present.
Yeah, it was like $100.
But I was very popular that day on campus.
Guys, we're dating ourselves.
I had hilarious emails negotiating buying Jessica's ad birthday with Eduardo Saverin.
Well, but like, you guys, this is making the point, which is, why is Facebook, Meta, one of the big 5 tech companies in the world? Like, Mark was great at business from day one, right?
Yeah.
Yeah, well, and it was, and I think on the flip side, it's like, why is Snap trading dramatically below its IPO price and hilariously dramatically below its pre-IPO late venture round prices? It's because it was an incredible growth machine on a product hack. Evan is good at product by all accounts. He's come up with some cool ideas. I'm not sure they're the best business things to do all at once, and like it just doesn't clear to me it's a good business.
Well, but to
You
give
know,
them some credit, they did beat earnings, and it appears as though they are, iterating, working on it, trying, like really putting the work in. To Jess's point, like putting in the grind to become better business people. And I don't know them either, so
yeah. And I do think the question, I have no idea what their expectations on earnings are. Because I think, if you miss enough, they start lowering expectations.
Okay, can I ask you guys a question? Okay, say that you care about the business, but you really like care more about the product and the creativity. And now you're in this company for like 10 years and like you are just focusing on ads and every day is really boring and the company's doing well. Like, what do? Do you leave or do you stay and like put yourself in some like R&D team or something? Like, I think there are a lot of
I don't think you
creative
do that.
founders.
I think putting yourself in an R&D team is lame. Should not do that. You're either in or out if you're the leader. You have too much sway as the leader, especially founder leader of a company like that, to like do that, right? I think that's a mistake. I think you got to be in or out. Now, the in or out's interesting. I think if you're like, I hate ads, I don't want to ever do ads, I don't see a way to do it, I'm not even sure I'm the best person to do it, right? Then you just leave. But if you're great, and being great is a really high bar, you just have to be a wartime CEO. You do your fucking 3 years and win, and then you go back to doing what you want. And I actually think, again, like not to over index on it, but like I do think Mark is fabulous at this, right?
yeah,
Like,
for sure.
as a leader, he is an incredible buckle down guy. He has a lot of awesome interests. They want to do a lot of cool stuff. But like in the end of the day, like when it's game time and something has to be done, even if he doesn't love it, he knows how to do it and he will do it.
Okay, guys. Well, thank you. Speaking of founder journey, in 2 hours, I'm hosting 200 amazing women, and I'm supposed to rehearse my keynote on stage first, so I'm quite late. I'm going to bounce. Brett, I can't wait to see you later.
I'll be there. We'll post some photos.
Okay, keep the cover going. Bye.
Okay, we're going. Okay, well, let's tie it back to the earnings this week because Google was down, Microsoft was up. I mean, their revenue was up. Everyone's revenue was up. Like the macro is like, I think investors are generally positive about
Today wasn't very good though.
Google
Wednesday.
and Microsoft and Snap made progress this week. What happened today, Sam?
Bloodbath. A lot of red. Google's down 10%. Sauna's down 7%.
Why is it all down now again?
Sadness.
The sentiment. Crypto's up. Everyone's excited about crypto being
what's
up
going on with
in all my
crypto?
Web3 circles. Is that related to
Sam, what's your take on? Let's talk about crypto a little bit.
Solana's ripping.
Sam and I have a Solana. So what's your take on what's going on, Sam?
I actually don't have a very informed take right now. I think, look, I do think that, we were talking with a friend that Bitcoin is a risk on asset, right? You have seen a bunch of tech stuff going up that'll bring Bitcoin along with it. I think when Bitcoin goes up, there's then some rotation into the alts. That's kind of a natural pattern. You see the good ones being like ETH and Solana. There has been some good news, like the Ripple stuff, et cetera, coming out, I think, which is good. I actually think, as sad as it is, there's a lot of world news that's burying the FTX trial. And so I think some of the downward pressure of like, this sucks, Sam Bankman-Fried sucks, is like kind of gotten sucked out a little bit of the media cycle. But I don't have like a tight narrative on why it's up. I mean, as you guys know, I'm like a long-term very bullish on this stuff, and it's good to see things stabilizing. I know of a bunch of companies in the crypto world that are getting good term sheets in, that are doing real work and growing. There's been a bunch of great announcements like Solana Visa, et cetera. So like, there's a lot of good stuff happening. But the funny thing is like in different parts.
Yeah, it is interesting. We're seeing up rounds in crypto, but nothing else.
Yeah, I know one today with multiple term sheets at a multiple of what we did around that not too long ago. So like,
yeah, same.
It's happening.
We had one last week. Yeah,
I think I think some of the true upsetness about crypto has kind of waned. We've flushed out all the crappy stuff, not all of it. There's still some fun lawsuit emails flying, but like it's coming together. And it's just a long-term thing. So I think there's a lot of good news. Crypto is interesting because you can have periods it's so emotion driven because it's so, it's a 24/7 market of a lot of
Yeah.
participants. That you'll have periods where like really good news like doesn't move it the needle at all. People are like, whatever, but there are other periods where that same exact news, if it hit, would have been like mooning things. People get so excited. And so I think
Yeah.
we've been for the last several months in a period where people are like, a lot of good news is happening, but like, who cares? And I think we're kind of maybe moving into a cycle where people are going to start caring about positive news again.
Do you think if you're a crypto company that is able to raise another round right now, you're like de facto just going to be like this wartime hero by the next time you need to raise a round? Like investors will be like, you got through the winter, like, and they even invested in you through. Like, I just wonder if there's like this halo effect that happens in sort of the down markets.
Well, there's no question down markets. I mean, the question is how you got through, I think. Like, the CEOs who buckled down, right, figured out how to make money, figured out how to build sustainable businesses, did real cuts.
That's what I'm saying.
I think there are other ways you get through, which is just you raised so much money before that you kind of just like putter
you have
through.
5 years runway because you raised $50 million. Yeah. No, I mean, I'm talking about the former, not the latter. I think there's something to be said about the leadership of those who can get through these times and even raise in these times, especially in this in the Web3 and crypto market above all others. And so,
I just think crypto is unique because like I think that there's in those places like that's not I just had so much money that we kind of puttered through it and didn't do anything that like is actually a thing in crypto. And I don't think those people get much credit, but I think the people who are like, I'm coming out of this with more market share in whatever I'm doing, having figured out how to make money, like with a real business, like, I mean, those are hardened veterans. They're awesome.
Yeah, that's what I'm saying. I just like naturally respect these people so much for like sticking with it and grinding through like this terrible time. Dave, did you have any final comments before we wrap on this?
On crypto or other topics?
Crypto in the broader market.
No.
Okay, good answer.
No comment.
No, I'm with Sam. I'm long term extremely bullish on crypto. The fundamental underlying networks are in a better place than they were. Before this all started. Like the performance is better. It's not like these systems are going away. The use cases are, continuing to focus. I think it is kind of funny that people are saying things like, we're building this experience and nobody's going to even know that it was built on crypto. And like my joke used to be that, nobody's going to use the words NFT or anything like that. Just like nobody uses the word MP3 anymore when they click on a song on Spotify. They just listen to a song and they don't think about what the underlying technology is.
Are those even MP3s anymore? I don't think they are.
But I mean, they're like very, very sophisticated versions of MP3s, right? Like that have.
Can I give a different like one line on what you're saying, Dave, which I've been using recently, which is like, you're always in trouble when people are telling you how sexy the infrastructure is.
Yeah.
That's a bad time to be in. So what you want, infrastructure is supposed to be boring, right?
Totally.
And so when infrastructure gets sufficiently boring, that's when you should be building on it. And the reality is that, crypto's infrastructure, we used to talk about it as like inning 2. Like inning 1 is Bitcoin, inning 2 is making the fucking infrastructure work, inning 3 is the products and the applications. Like inning 2, what is an NFT? What are the things work around it? Is like a version of that, but it's also like Solana fucking works now. Like there's a bunch of stuff. Like it's so boring that people are no longer like excited about it. They're just like, like there's gonna be a token component to what we do, or like whatever. He's like, I just plug in crypto for that, or like I was with some founders recently who was talking about so nonchalantly about like some zero knowledge proof stuff. They're like, oh yeah, and like there's a way to think about it. Like people who are unsophisticated who don't know what they're talking about, they'll be like, oh yeah, and then we like plug in ZKs here and it all works. And you're like, well, you just don't know what you're talking about. But in this case, the founder was talking about it because like, it just is like not even controversial anymore. It's like, that's how you use this thing and then it's done. Right.
Yep.
So it's good that crypto infrastructure is getting boring.
Yeah, no question.
All right. Well, there we have it, folks. I think if you've got any Bitcoin, check out what's happening to it right now, Solana, et cetera. And maybe we're looking at a rosy outlook for the next few months to come. We'll find out soon.
Or maybe the next few days.
Few days to come.
Few hours.
Yeah. Hey, it's all possible. I will play Jess's role and wrap this up. Thank you to everybody who listens. Please rate, review, and share this with all your friends out there. We love having you guys give us feedback, so please do that as well. And thanks again to our back channel. It's been very active this week. We'll try to bring you guys some more of those topics and maybe even another fifth wheel guest in the near future.
The fifth wheel.
The fifth wheel. All right, signing off.
Bye, guys.
Bye, guys.
If you enjoyed this show, please leave us a virtual high five by rating it and reviewing it on Apple Podcast, Spotify, YouTube, or wherever you get your podcasts. Find more information about each episode in the show notes and follow us on social media by searching for @MoreOrLess, @DaveMorin, @Lesson, @JLesson, and as for me, I'm @Brit. See you guys next time.